It was a chilly morning when we set out, the kind that nips at your nose and makes you feel alive. The mountain loomed ahead, its jagged peaks hidden behind a thick veil of mist. We were a group of friends, all eager for the challenge that lay ahead. The climb started off well enough. We laughed and joked as we made our way up the winding path, the crisp mountain air filling our lungs. But as we ascended higher, the mood began to shift. The mist grew thicker, wrapping around us like a shroud. The wind picked up, carrying with it strange, mournful whispers that sent shivers down our spines. Still, we pressed on, determined to reach the summit. It wasn't long before we encountered the first signs that something was amiss. Strange markings appeared on the rocks, symbols we couldn't decipher. And then there were the sounds, faint at first, but growing louder with each step we took. We tried to brush off our unease, chalking it up to nerves and exhaustion. But as we neared the summit, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. It felt as though unseen eyes were watching us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And then, just as we reached the summit, it happened. A sudden gust of wind swept through the pass, knocking us off our feet. And in that moment, we saw them, shadowy figures lurking just beyond the veil of mist. We tried to run, but it was no use. The spirits had us cornered, their sorrowful wails echoing through the pass. We huddled together, praying for salvation as they closed in around us. Hours passed, though it felt like an eternity. The spirits seemed to feed off our fear, growing stronger with each passing moment. And then, just when all hope seemed lost, a break in the clouds appeared overhead. The moon cast its pale light down upon us, illuminating the pass in an otherworldly glow. And in that moment, the spirits retreated, their anguished cries fading into the night. We lay there, shaken but alive, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. And as we looked out over the quiet mountaintop, we couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for our survival and for the beauty of the world that surrounded us. But even as we descended back down the mountain, we couldn't shake the feeling that we had been changed by our encounter. The summit of sorrows had tested us in ways we never thought possible, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease that would haunt us for the rest of our days. The descent was slow and somber. The once vibrant chatter among us had been replaced by a heavy silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes still watching us, even as we left the summit behind. The memories of the spirits' mournful cries lingered in my mind, haunting me with their echoes. I couldn't help but wonder what had brought them to that forsaken place, what tragedies had befallen them to bind them to the mountain. As we made our way down the treacherous path, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. Every rustle of the wind, every shadow that danced in the corner of my eye sent a chill down my spine. And then, just when I thought we were in the clear, disaster struck. A sudden rockslide sent us tumbling down the mountainside, our screams lost in the roar of falling debris. I awoke to darkness, my body battered and bruised. My friends lay scattered around me, their faces pale in the dim light. We were trapped, with no way to call for help and no hope of escape. Hours turned into days as we waited for rescue, our supplies dwindling with each passing moment. And all the while, The mountain seemed to mock us with its silent indifference. It was then that I realized truth. The mountain pass was not just a physical obstacle, but a gateway to something far more sinister. The spirits that had haunted us on the summit were still with us, their presence growing stronger with each passing day. I tried to hold on to hope, to believe that we would make it out alive. But as the days turned into weeks, it became clear that our fate was sealed. We were prisoners of the mountain, doomed to wander its winding paths for all eternity. And so we remain, trapped between the realms of the living and the dead, our spirits bound to the mountain, just like those who came before us. Our cries echo through the pass, a warning to all who dare to tread its treacherous slopes. So if you ever find yourself drawn to the summit of sorrows, heed my warning, turn back while you still can. For the mountain pass holds secrets far darker than you could ever imagine, and once you enter its grasp, there is no escape. As the days dragged on, our sanity began to fray like old rope. We scavenged for any edible scraps we could find, but hunger gnawed at our bellies incessantly. Desperation clawed at our hearts, urging us to make reckless decisions in our quest for survival. Some among us spoke of making a final desperate bid for freedom, of braving the treacherous terrain in hopes of finding help. But the mountains seemed to thwart our every attempt, its jagged cliffs and impassable chasms serving as grim reminders of our confinement. With each passing day, the line between reality and nightmare blurred further. Shadows danced at the edge of our vision, and whispers filled the air, taunting us with promises of escape that we knew could never be fulfilled. And then, one fateful night, the spirits returned with a vengeance. They surrounded us, their anguished cries echoing through the darkness as they dragged us kicking and screaming into the depths of despair. I fought with all my strength, but it was no use. Their spectral hands gripped me tightly, pulling me ever closer to the edge of oblivion. I screamed until my throat was raw, until the sound was lost in the cacophony of misery that enveloped us. And just when I thought I could take no more, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon. A search party, drawn by the faint echoes of our cries, stumbled upon our makeshift camp, their faces a mix of horror and disbelief at the sight that greeted them. With their help, we were finally able to break free from the mountain's icy grasp. But even as we made our way back to civilization, I knew that a part of me would always remain trapped on the summit of sorrows, forever haunted by the memories of what had transpired there. And so, dear listener, heed my tale as a warning. The mountain pass may seem like just another obstacle to overcome, but beneath its serene facade lies a darkness that few can comprehend. Venture into its depths at your own peril, for the price of entry may be more than you are willing to pay. As for me, I have vowed never to return to those accursed slopes, to leave the memories of that fateful journey behind me, and move forward with my life. But even now, as I sit by the warmth of the fire, I can't shake the feeling that something lingers in the shadows, watching and waiting for its next victim. The days following our rescue were filled with a sense of surreal disbelief. We were whisked away from the mountain and taken to safety. But the memories of our ordeal clung to us like a persistent fog. Sleep eluded me, haunted by nightmares that transported me back to the summit of sorrows. My friends and I sought solace in each other's company, finding comfort in the shared understanding of what we had endured. Yet, despite our best efforts to move on, the mountain's grip on our minds remained unyielding. Every shadow seemed to whisper secrets of our time on the mountain, and every gust of wind carried with it the mournful cries of the spirits that had tormented us. It was as though the mountain had seeped into our very souls, leaving behind an indelible mark that could never be erased. As weeks turned into months, I tried to bury myself in the mundane routines of everyday life, hoping to outrun the memories that threatened to consume me. But no matter how hard I tried, the mountain was always there, lurking in the corners of my mind like a spectre waiting to pounce. And then, one day, I received a letter in the mail. It was addressed to me, though there was no return address to speak of. With trembling hands, I tore open the envelope and unfolded the piece of paper nestled inside. What I read chilled me to the bone. It was a message from someone claiming to have experienced the same horrors that we had encountered on the summit of sorrows. They spoke of whispers in the night and shadowy figures that danced at the edge of their vision, warning me to stay away from the mountain, lest I meet the same fate as they. My heart raced as I read and reread the letter, the words burning themselves into my mind like hot coals. Who had sent it? And how had they known about our ordeal on the mountain? As the days passed, I became increasingly paranoid, jumping at every sound and seeing threats lurking in every shadow. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination running wild, but deep down I knew that something was terribly wrong. And then, one night, as I lay awake in bed, I heard it, the faint sound of whispers drifting through the darkness. My blood ran cold as I realized that they were coming from outside my window, carried on the wind like a sinister lullaby. I buried myself beneath the covers, praying for morning to come and banish the shadows that plagued me. But even as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I couldn't shake the feeling that the mountain was calling to me, beckoning me back to its haunted slopes once more.